The Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Atlanta to face the Falcons on Sunday. Pittsburgh a 2-point favorite on BETDAQ, 55 the total in this game. Now the Steelers are at 8-5, Atlanta 5-8, but the Falcons are tied for first in the NFC South with New Orleans, so this a very big game for both teams. Major playoff implications here. Now Pittsburgh's been very unreliable this season. They have a couple of really bad losses to Tampa Bay and the New York Jets. They almost lost to the Tennessee Titans, so they've struggled against bad teams before. Make no mistake about it, Atlanta is a bad team. I think a lot of people are taking the Falcons' performance over their last two games, a win over the Arizona Cardinals and a 6-point loss to Green Bay last week, and they think that sort of legitimizes this team. But you look at those two games, the Cardinals have not been the same team since losing starting quarterback Carson Palmer. And last week the Falcons were way down at halftime to the Green Bay Packers before they sort of let it loose and were able to pile up the points against a vulnerable Green Bay defense in the second half. But the Packers were never really in danger of losing that game. So coming out of that game, I really don't feel any different about the Atlanta Falcons than I did going into that game. They were a double-digit dog. We talked about in the preview, the backdoor cover was a definite possibility, a definite concern for Packers bettors, and indeed that's exactly what happened. You look at Atlanta's offense, excellent skill position talent, certainly. Even though Julio Jones banged up and might not play in this game, that is something to keep an eye on. Falcons also have an excellent quarterback in Matt Ryan. What they do not have, though, is a capable offensive line. That line has been brutal this season. Falcons really had to change their offensive game plan over the course of the season. Starting at about week 4 or 5, they started noticeably getting the ball out of Matt Ryan's hands quicker. They stopped throwing the ball down the field as much. People who saw Atlanta score 37 points against Green Bay last week and think that that's sort of what they've been doing all season, those people are mistaken. Before last week, the Falcons had gone 9 consecutive games without reaching 30 points. So they're not really explosive on offense, at least not quite as explosive as they have been in years past. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, very explosive offensively. Steelers, second in the NFL in both total yards per game and pass yards per game, 6th in the league in points scored. And they're going up against an Atlanta defense that is awful. The Falcons, last in the league in total defense, last against the pass. And you look at their schedule a little more closely, I actually think this Atlanta defense is worse than people think it is. I think they're worse than people realize because they just haven't faced any good offenses this season until last week when they faced Green Bay and gave up 43 points, 35 in the first half. And lest you think I'm exaggerating, let me read back to you Atlanta's last 11 games. I mean, starting in week 4, Tampa Bay, Minnesota, the New York Giants, Chicago Bears, Baltimore, the Detroit Lions, Tampa Bay again, Carolina, Cleveland, Arizona without Carson Palmer, and Green Bay. Again, they surrendered 43 points to Green Bay. So the Falcons have been facing really nothing but mediocre offenses and worse. I guess somebody like Baltimore has a pretty good offense, but that's about it. And they still rank last in the NFL in yards allowed. So here comes Pittsburgh, who's been very good offensively this season. I just think this is a good matchup for the Steelers. I think they're going to take care of business here. I realize this game is in Atlanta, and like we said, the Steelers do have a couple of bad losses on their resume this season. I also know that Matt Ryan has been good in his career as a home underdog. 7-2-1 against the spread is Ryan as a home underdog. Don't like him in this situation, though. For number one, he has probably the worst defense he's had in his career, and he has a bad offensive line in front of him. So I think Pittsburgh's the better team. I think they're going to pick up a win on Sunday and cover the 2-point number.